And our next speaker is Dr. Nick Taylor. He's going to be presenting savings potential for a targeted smart irrigation controller program in the Tampa Bay area.
All right, what I'm going to talk about today is not going to be nearly as complicated as what most folks did. It's basically, we're going to go through a thought experiment about how we can get the most savings from a conservation program that implements smart controllers. So I'm Nick Taylor. I'm a state specialized extension agent with the Program for Resource Efficient Communities, the Center for Land Use Efficiency, and I lead a program called H2O Save. We work with utilities, builders, developers, local governments, water management districts on helping them improve water conservation efforts. Right now, we cover over 20% of the state. We have records going back many, many years on individual properties and what the water use is like. We blend that with property appraisal data. So now we have some idea about the water use and then about the properties themselves. And we look at programs. So I think you all seen lots of things like this today. State's growing rapidly. Most of the new homes have in-ground irrigation systems. That's a really fast way to use a lot of water. We're going to focus in on these are homes. All right. Where's my slide? Oh. I got the back. This thing works a little differently. Okay. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. These buttons, you should know, are slightly different from standard controllers. Okay, we're going to focus in on the Tampa Bay area. And so we're looking at sort of how do we reduce the water use in a lot like this. We looked at all of the standard homes. We looked at across all the single family detached homes in the Tri-County region. That's about 450,000 homes, and the average landscape size is around 6,650 square feet. And we're looking at, if you think about IFAS recommendations and about what does it take to put water on that amount of landscape area. If you water that for a half an inch on that size of a lot, it's over 2,000 gallons. That would be like standing in the shower for 13 hours. Just so we're all clear on how much water it really takes to water a landscape for a half an inch. And we even say half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. So just so you know. All right, so we looked at some of the previous research on net irrigation requirement, and for that Tampa Bay area, 28.9 inches of water per year, and that would be just about 10,000 gallons per month for each home. We assumed 150 gallons per day of water indoor, and we got that 150 gallons. That's what we consistently see in dual metered homes across the state for all the different homes that we have. We see no matter where you are at, that 150 gallons per day is a rough average. It's and so we just assume that's what it would take to do indoor. That puts us at 14,545 gallons of total water use in a month. Okay, so we did the same type of calculation for each home in the area, and we came up with a theoretical water use requirement, indoor and outdoor. Most of these are single metered, so we had to combine that number. And so for that typical home, this is the breakdown of that water use. The dark blue being indoor, the light blue being outdoor. We know that if you have an irrigated landscape, it's going to use much more than half of your water use. So this is just the benchmark. And so what we wanted to know is who is above the benchmark for their home? Because honestly, we're trying, if we institute a smart controller, an ET controller, something like that, we're really theoretically only getting you down to the net irrigation requirement. So this is as far as we go down in water use by installing a smart controller, theoretically. Okay, so when we looked at that, we compared this estimated use for each home to their actual water use. And only about 8.8% of those homes were actually using water beyond that theoretical requirement. It's a pretty high bar. So that's a tiny slice of the pie. So if you think about this in terms of implementing a conservation program, you can forget the blue part. You don't need to worry about those folks. You can focus in on that 8.8%. So right now, we've eliminated a large portion of the effort that it would need to really address this. Okay. So the over irrigators, everybody that was above their bar, which took the average for those folks, they were using nearly 21,000 gallons per month. That's 63% more on average than was required. So these homes could save 6,200 gallons per month if they just came down, again, to the red line, to the theoretical requirement. So that's the movement we're looking for, that shift down just to the orange line, just get you down to the theoretical requirement. All right, so we know that we're not going to get to all 39,000 of those homes. And so for this, we said, what is a reasonable target for a utility or an organization trying to implement this? Let's just say 20%. If we could just get 20% of it, what would that look like? So again, the orange part is the people that would really be applicable for this program, and we're only focusing on that tiny part of the pie. If all those people that just that 1.8% collectively could reduce water use by 592 million gallons of water per year, 1.6 MGD, million gallons per day. That's what utilities really look at. That's their demand as opposed to longevity of the water use over the course of a year. So when we looked at this, when we started looking at this water use, the average cost for a kilogallon, and this is base rate plus a lot of other things, and just generalized across the scale. If you took the upper tier of water use, it might even be a little bit more expensive, but we're looking at $5.70 per thousand gallons, not including wastewater charges. That could make it even more expensive. Individual homes savings $35 per month, 427 per year. And so if we roll that up, we start to look at the time there was a rebate offered in the Tampa Bay area. Now they'll just do it for you for free. They will literally come put in a smart controller for you for free. But we were assuming a $450 cost for a smart controller. We had a student who was working with us and done some of the legwork to find out what that general cost would be. And then we considered the $250 rebate that was applicable at the time. So their payback would be just under 6 months. Again, this only works for a high using group. And then if that product lifetime was 10 years, we're looking at $4,076 in savings over those 10 years, given the cost of the controller and the savings. And for the group, that would be $32 million in collective savings. Still, that's only the 1.8% of the whole population. So from the utility perspective, just under $2 million for the rebates to customers, 1.6 MGD of savings. That's about 33 cents per thousand gallons saved. I was looking at something the other day. Southwest Florida Water Management District has a calculator for their cost share program, and they really want that to be under $6 per thousand gallons. This is a pretty impactful program, but I want to repeat again, only if it's targeted properly to the high users, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. Again, for the other folks, not really expecting a savings if you're not above that theoretical requirement. So that is the bulk of what I want to talk about. And that's where we focus our energy, is sort of, again, in this same way, helping people streamline programs, finding programs that work, and incentivizing other folks to take advantage of it. And I know this is simple, and it could have been a lightning round thing, but we're actually putting some of these things in action by providing specific lists, contact lists of people. We help the utilities with the targeting, provide them maps, provide them lists, ways to contact these folks. And we're also helping them. Well, my colleague Caitlin here Kaylee Rob Price, she's helping with, she's our communication specialist and is helping with messaging. So reviewing letters and communications that would go out to different homeowners, certainly looking at some of the work from Laura Warner and John Diaz and Paul Monahan that's so helpful in sort of tailoring this messaging. And so that's what we're doing to make this effort a reality. And right now we're working with Hillsborough County Water, Southern Hillsborough County in particular, to roll out some of this messaging and some of this targeting and see if we can move that portion of their conservation programs forward. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. And again, I know that was brief. Tim.
Nick, really fascinating. My question is, how reliably can the installation of smart controllers reduce irrigation utilization down to that red line? And is there anything in addition to the smart controller that might be necessary to achieve that?
Right, that is a question that is above my skill level, but there are, if you could reduce the net irrigation requirement, and I think that's something that Evan was talking about earlier, soil amendments and different things like that that can reduce the net irrigation requirement if you were using maybe a different type. This was for, I believe this was for St. Augustine. If you were to use a different type of turf, maybe the net irrigation requirement would be maybe different, but those are other ways if you drop it down even more. And again, the good part is that we have a large portion of the population that's not, they're not above that threshold. There's probably still some things they could do, but they are just not quite there. All right. Now I see the sign. I know what all of the speakers have been talking about now, because now I got the sign to repeat the question. Okay. So the question was, is there anything we can do to get the water use to make those smart controllers more impactful, to get down below the bar that I showed earlier for the net irrigation requirement? And some of those things are changing. The net irrigation requirement, as I understand it, is based a lot on the plant material, the soil structure, soil types, and then the rainfall in the area. So we can have some control over those soil amendments and potentially the turf type. And that could maybe get us a little lower. So, Stacey.
I greatly appreciate H2O Saves. That's been really helpful for us in Alachua County. I'm curious if any of the users are using it as a public-facing website for people, for residents to get and look and see how they compare to their neighbors, or is it all agencies using it to target?
Okay. The question was, is H2O Save ever a public-facing website? And the short answer to that is no. We are purposefully working with high-level decision makers on implementing programs. So we want to work with those utilities, municipalities, water management districts, builders, developers, and folks that are really controlling programs at a higher level and implementation at a higher level. Yes.
So at the time that the controllers are put in, is there any additional education offered to homeowners regarding not the controllers, but the sensors put in? Is there any other additional education provided to the homeowners about setting their controllers? Yeah, I know in Fishhawk it's a lot of established landscapes, maybe putting zero time on the drip irrigation and shrubs, that sort of thing, that could also be an additional savings.
So the question there was, is there any homeowner education that happens at the install of these smart controllers or sensors? This is theoretical and is about targeting. On the ground, you're in the area with Tampa Bay WaterWise, and so for them, they start with an audit of the landscape and evaluation to make sure that the landscape irrigation system is in good working order, and then the smart controller is installed. I'm not sure about education at that point.
I don't know the answer for that. Sure. So the program, so extension agents are gonna go homes to see how it was installed, if it was already installed,
And at that point, they might interact with the homeowner and tell them how the system works, what they expect, how they can change something that's working. So some homes are going to get, and they're going to get some kind of occasional.
All right, I will try to repeat that answer. That was Bernard, and he's worked with this program as well. And his response was that these, the extension agents in the area will be visiting some of those homes and will be providing some training at that point. We could check up on that one, and we could certainly suggest it because it is a really good idea. Here's.
How many actual homes are there in 1.8% of that population?
39,000. Yes.
So you're gonna make personal visits to
Well-
39,000 homes.
Well, it's, okay, let's go back here. Let's go back here. So 39,000 was the 8.8%. So 20% of those, roughly 8,000. Yeah, yeah, sorry. I was going back to the slide, but not necessarily.
Just a couple minutes left for questions. Actually, I have one thing, which is for the funding to actually purchase the smart controllers, or the smart sensors.
Mhm.
Is that something that can be replicated? Is it like a grant that can be applied for, or is it just the utility stepped up to fund it?
This is the one in particular that I've looked at is the Tampa Bay Waterwise program. And they got cost share funding from Southwest Florida Water Management District. And they actually provide those incentives across the tri-county area of Tampa Bay. I don't know how best to say this, but they're not directly tied to the utility providers. They are, but it's complicated. They're authority over the member governments, but they're providing that funding down. So they're kind of in a unique situation there, but certainly there are cost share funding and lots of things from water management districts to help pay for that. Jennison.
Thanks, Nick, for your presentation. My question is about the 33 cents per 1,000 gallons, right? That was the cost effectiveness essentially of the targeting. And you said that it was that they had to offer this incentive program, they had to be below $6 per 1,000 gallons, right? Do you have any idea, or do you have any sense of what that 33 cents is relative to other conservation programs that Tampa Bay Water's done?
So Jennison asked if we have data for other conservation programs and their cost effectiveness that would compare with that 33 cents per kilogallon. I do not have that information for Tampa Bay Water. I do have some information for Toho Water Authority, and their programs range anywhere from 25 cents up to $1.50 or maybe even $2 at some point. And they've done that breakout. That's a pretty standard calculation for those folks. And I would say it's $6 per kilogallon. That's on the very, very high end. So.
Well, if there's no more questions, we just thank you.
All right.